Welcome to CBS Easy.
Hey everyone, getting ready for your CBSE board exams? Well, you've come to the right place. Today we are diving deep into Chapter 3, Water Resources. I'm going to walk you through the key points, the vocabulary that examiners love to see, and exactly how to structure your answers to lock in those full marks. So, here's our game plan for today. First, we'll tackle the Great Water Paradox. Then, we'll decode what water scarcity really means, for your exams. After that, we'll weigh the pros and cons of dams, look at some really cool ancient solutions, and finally, we'll get practical and go through textbook questions step by step. All right, first up, let's unpack this idea of the Great Water Paradox. Seriously, if you can get your head around this one concept, the rest of the chapter just clicks into place. Keep this question in the back of your mind as we go. It's the central puzzle of the whole chapter. And if you can frame your answers around it, you're going to show the examiner a much deeper understanding. So, why on a planet that's mostly blue is freshwater so incredibly hard to come by? The textbook uses Chintu and Pinky to illustrate a really fundamental point. Water has this dual nature. It's the source of all life, right? We need it for everything, drinking, farming, running our factories. But it can also be this immense force of destruction, like the floods you hear about in Assam. It's this complexity that makes managing water such a massive challenge. Okay, now let's get precise. For your exam, you need a really clear definition of water scarcity. Getting this right is everything. Here's a powerful number you should probably memorize. By 2025, it's predicted that nearly 2 billion people will be living with absolute water scarcity. Dropping a hard statistic like this into your answer, it's a really simple way to make your point much more powerful. And here is the absolute key. Scarcity isn't just about quantity. It's not just about having no water. It's also about quality. Think about it. You could have a giant river flowing right by your city. But if it's too polluted to use, well, that's still water scarcity. So, if you get a question on the causes of scarcity, these are the value points that examiners are literally looking for. You've got to talk about the quantitative stuff, the pressure from a huge and growing population, the massive amount of water needed for modern farming and industry, and of course, the thirst of our ever-expanding cities. And please, don't forget the other side of the coin, the qualitative factors. Bad water quality from our homes, from factories, from chemicals on farms is a huge driver of scarcity. And it's also so important to mention unequal access. Even in places with plenty of rain, some communities can still face shortages. Okay, so we've defined the problem. Now let's look at one of modern India's biggest solutions, multi-purpose river projects, or, as we all know them, dams. But the big question is, are they a silver bullet, or do they just create a whole new set of problems? Now this slide, this is your perfect prep for a classic exam question. They want to see a balanced view, so you have to be able to argue both sides. On one hand, the advantages are pretty obvious: irrigation, electricity, flood control. But on the other hand, the disadvantages are just as serious, displacing thousands of people, destroying river ecosystems, and even causing new floods downstream. Knowing both is absolutely non-negotiable for a top-scoring answer. From those huge modern engineering projects, we're going to pivot to something completely different. Let's talk about some ancient, localized, and often incredibly smart methods of water conservation. Just think of this table as your cheat sheet for those short answer questions. You'll want to remember these names and regions. You've got the Guls and Kuls in the Himalayas, the Khaddins out in Rajasthan. Each one is just a brilliant example of people adapting to their local geography. And here's a fantastic look at probably the most famous system, the Tanka from Rajasthan. It's such an ingenious design. Rainwater from the roofs is funneled through pipes into these huge underground tanks, often built right in the middle of a family's courtyard. Okay, here's a pro tip for you. In your answer, use the specific vocabulary from the textbook. Calling this stored rainwater Palar Pani, it's a clear signal to the examiner that you've really mastered the material. It was seen as the purest form of water, and people treasured it. All right, let's get really practical now. We've gone over the concepts, so let's apply them directly to some questions from the textbook. Let's see how to turn all that knowledge into marks on the page. Let's kick things off with a pretty fundamental concept, right from your exercises. How exactly is water considered a renewable resource? And here it is, a perfect, concise answer. The key word you absolutely positively must include is hydrological cycle. Just explain that this natural process of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation is always renewing our fresh water, and boom, you've got the marks. And here it is, that classic comparison question we prepared for. Let's break down exactly how you should structure the perfect answer. To totally ace this question, structure is key. You've got to clearly separate the advantages from the disadvantages. I'd aim for at least 3 solid points for each side. Irrigation and power on one hand versus displacement and ecological damage on the other. That shows you have a really comprehensive view. Okay, last one. This is a longer question that needs you to explain a process. This is where a clear, step-by-step explanation is going to win you the points. Let's break down that tanka system. The absolute best way to answer this is to just walk them through it in a logical sequence. Start with the collection on sloped roofs. Then mention the pipes leading to the underground tank. Explain that crucial step where they let the first rain wash the roof clean. And then finish with the storage and use of Palarpani. Answering with a detailed process like this just proves you've mastered the topic. So, let's just do a quick recap of the key takeaways for full marks. First, define scarcity both ways, quantity and quality. Second, be ready to argue both sides of the dam debate. Third, memorize those traditional harvesting methods. And always use those keywords. But above all, remember that a clear, organized structure is your best friend in that exam hall. We'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. As we face the water challenges of the 21st century, what really is the right path forward? Is it more giant engineering projects, or should we be looking to revive the sustainable wisdom of our ancestors? The real answer, of course, probably lies somewhere in the middle. Good luck with your preparation.
Thank you for watching with us. See you next time.